Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point, AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. The program is Focal Point. The network is AFR Talk. You are listening to Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on conservative talk radio. Just a lot of shenanigans on this whole deal. The Senate bill was 154 pages long. You know when that bill arrived on the Senate floor? That bill, 154 pages long, arrived on the Senate floor at 1:36 a.m. yesterday morning. What's today? Is today the 2nd or the 3rd? 2nd. So yesterday morning, January 1st, 1:36 a.m., this Senate bill on the fiscal cliff shows up on the Senate floor. You know when they voted on that thing? They voted on that thing at 1:39 a.m. They voted on a 154-page bill 3 minutes after they got it. So what does that mean? That means nobody read it. This is just like this is deja vu from the Obamacare bill. Nobody had a chance to read this thing. Nobody knew what was in it when they voted for it. Nobody had reviewed the language. So just a parliamentary fiasco. But we do know you got to read it to find out what's in it. Well, here, this will just grind your gears. Here's some of the stuff that's in it. Here's some of the stuff that got thrown in to this bill, and the Sandy bill has got all kinds of stuff in it. Everybody's up in arms that they haven't passed the bill. Well, let's remember a couple of things. FEMA has still got $7.8 billion in an emergency relief fund. Now, they've sent $664 million of it to New York, most of it to New York, but they still have $7.8 billion with a B dollars, not million with an M, billion with a B. They've got it in an emergency relief fund, and they can tap into another couple of billion if they need to. They've got almost $11 billion sitting there right now that they can use for relief for Sandy. So it's not like their hands are tied. And private charities raised another $300 million. And here's some of the stuff that the Democrats wedged into the Sandy bill. They've got $2 million in that puppy to repair the roofs of museums in Washington, D.C. They weren't anywhere near this thing when it happened. They got $150 million for fisheries in Alaska. Alaska wasn't anywhere near this thing. They got $15 million for NASA. They've got $50 million for tree planting on private properties. I mean, I wouldn't be in any hurry to get that bill to a vote either. Now, here's what's in this fiscal cliff bill. Got to pass it to find out what's in it. Well, now, after it got passed, people had a chance to read it. Here's what's in it. You ready for this? There's $430 million in there for Hollywood. For film producers in Hollywood. They had the best year in 2012 they've ever had. And yet, this bill that just had to be voted on last night's got $430 million for Hollywood in it. It's got $331 million for railroads. Remember, Amtrak is selling burgers for $9.50, and it costs them $15 to make them. They're going broke hand over fist. So another $331 million for railroads. Then we got $222 million for rum producers. Let me repeat that. In this $620 billion tax hike, $3.9 trillion increase in the federal deficit, $222 million for rum producers in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. Then there is $70 million for NASCAR, for speedways in this deal. Now, I know a lot of you out there saying, hey, that's good. We can get rid of everything else. We got to keep that $70 million subsidy for NASCAR. I'm down with that. Catch this. There's $59 million in this bill for algae growers. $59 million. And then there is $4 million for people that make electric motorcycles, whether they got 2 wheels or whether they got 3 wheels. They made sure that was in there. 2 wheels, 3 wheels, we got you covered, $4 million. So did you know that? Did you know that that was in this emergency bill, this 154-page bill that nobody had a chance to read? There's money for Hollywood. There's money for railroads. There's money for rum producers. There's money for speedways, and there's money for algae growers in this thing. So that's what's going on with that bill. Now let's grab Grover Norquist, clip 5, and then we'll take some phone calls, 888-589-8840. Grover Norquist, Americans for Tax Reform. They're one of the organizations that their credibility is taking a complete bath on this deal, because Grover Norquist said, yeah, they can vote for that $620 billion tax increase, and it's really not a tax increase. In fact, what Grover Norquist says in this clip, listen to this. This guy's supposed to be a fiscal conservative. This is the no tax increase guy, the pledge for no tax increases. A lot of these guys signed, and they totally violated. And Grover Norquist says, hey, look, technically, the Bush tax rates expired at midnight on January 1. So when these guys came along and voted for this bill, this was the biggest tax cut in history. Let's listen.
It's technically not a violation of the pledge, but I understand why a lot of Republicans have said, look, even though what's happening is the tax cuts disappear and we're restoring them for most people, so we're not raising taxes, we're actually cutting tax. And they need to be able to say with a straight face they fought to protect those tax cuts for everyone, and all the Republicans in the House have done that more than once, and that they're fighting to oppose any and all tax increases, period.
So that's Grover Norquist. Hey, look, this was the biggest tax cut in history because the Bush tax cuts technically expired. So they get the bill at 1:36 in the morning. They vote on it at 1:39. So for 1 hour and 39 minutes, tax rates on everybody went up technically. And so Grover Norquist says when they come back and they reinstate them for everybody but the job creators, that's the biggest tax cut in the history of civilization. That's the kind of legerdemain now, the kind of smoke and mirrors that Republicans or conservatives are resorting to support this thing. Well, let's grab some phone calls. Let's go to, is that John in Crawfordsville, Iowa? John, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Yeah, Ian in Indiana.
Ian, sorry about that. My bad. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Well, the only points I wanted to make about this was I thought that the Constitution says that any bills that have anything to do with tax increases have to originate in the House of Representatives.
You know, Ian, that is an absolutely great catch. It's a great observation. And I'll tell you what goes on. This is just how Mickey Mouse things have gotten on Washington, D.C. The way the Senate gets around that is they find a House bill that's been passed by the House and sent over to the Senate. And it's a House bill they've got no intention of voting on. They have no intention of adopting it. They've got no intention of approving it. They don't like it. So what they do, Ian, is they take that House bill that may have something to do with something completely else. It might have something to do, I don't know, with crawfish in the Louisiana bayou. Maybe that's what it's about. So they'll take that bill and they gut it. They take everything out of it. They completely strip it. They empty it out. They eviscerate it. And then they put back in there the fiscal bill that they want. So the original bill from the House had nothing to do with taxes, nothing to do with tax hikes, nothing to do with the budget of any kind. They just strip it. They put their own language in there. It's still got the House name on it. It's still got the House number on it. So they have this kind of sleight of hand where they say, oh, no, this we didn't originate this tax bill. This started over in the House. And then they send that bill back over to the House. You see what I'm talking about? It's just...
Oh my. Fire them all, eh?
Yeah. I mean, it's just absurd. All right, Ian, listen. Yeah, it really is. But that's what goes on. You know, when I worked with the legislature back in Idaho, I saw them do the same thing to bills. And it's the left that does it. It's liberals that do that kind of thing. All right, Ian, listen, that's a very, very perceptive call, a very, very perceptive question. And I'm glad we had the opportunity to clarify the Mickey Mouse tactics that are pursued in Washington on that issue. Let's go to David, Columbus, Ohio. David, you're on Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Well, you know, I think this problem in Congress is a spiritual problem, and I think it's because they've never read the Bible from cover to cover. And speaking of reading the Bible from cover to cover, I think this is an excellent time of year to do it. You know, if you can read 3 pages in the Old Testament and 1 page in the New Testament, you'll be through the Bible in no time, in less than a year, I think. Mm-hmm. And I called Boehner's office after I heard you on the radio and said I heard, you know, that he voted for a bill that, you know, no Republican should have voted for, and that, you know, I thought he was an Obama puppet. And the young lady that answered the phone said, well, you know, he did the best. He did what he thought was best, and there's a lot. And then she says a whole bunch of other Republicans voted for it too. But that doesn't make it right, you know.
No.
I mean,
well, and it was 85. He's right. 85 Republicans voted for it, but 151 Republicans voted against it. So Speaker Boehner was leading against the known will of his own party and his own caucus. Well, and you're right, David. I appreciate what you're saying, and thank you for the call about the lack of spiritual guidance. I preached this past Sunday at my home church on the book of Nehemiah about whether are we gone too far. The topic I addressed, have we gone too far as a nation? Can we come back? Can we reclaim this culture and this nation for God? And I suggested this is an important issue for spiritual reasons for us, and that is that I think God has a calling on nations just like he does on lives, and the calling on the United States of America is to fulfill the Great Commission. Matthew 28:19, Jesus commanded us, go and make disciples what? Of all nations. Which nation has done more to take the light of the gospel to the darkened corners of the world than any other nation in the history? It has been the United States of America. That's the calling on this land, to send missionaries with the light of the gospel to the far corners of the globe. What do you need to be able to do that? You need a healthy, thriving economy so that the people in America have discretionary income that they can give to support the advance of the kingdom of God all around the world. That's our calling. That's why the United States, or that's why Satan hates the United States. That's why he wants to cripple our economy, and he'll use any dupes he can to get that done. But one of the things is very clear. If you go through the book of Nehemiah, I didn't get this far in my teaching on Sunday, but you need righteous political leadership. That becomes very clear. If we're going to reclaim this nation for God, we've got to have righteous political leadership. Men like Nehemiah, who made his mark in history as a mayor and as a governor. Don't forget that. He made his mark. He's in the Bible because he was a righteous political leader. He wasn't a spiritual leader. That was Ezra's job. That was the job of the priest. He was a political leader. He was there to rebuild the wall and to rebuild the gates, to reestablish the national security, the security of his city, capital city, and his nation. Made his mark as a political leader. But it's very clear if you get to the end of the book, you cannot reclaim a land without an awakening, without spiritual renewal, without revival. That's got to be there. It's essential. Cannot happen without it. That's why we start every program with prayer for this nation for spiritual renewal. Focal Point AFR Talk, back in 2.